deathbed. I've never, ever worked for General Pinochet. I worked for the Pinochet Foundation, which is not General Pinochet. In the case of Mrs. Assad, we were asked to help her set up a communications office. That's all. In the case of the Pinochet Foundation, we were asked to stop him from being wrongly extradited to Madrid when he'd been arrested.
And your motivation is?
My motivation, I work for clients. I work in a commercial
business?
Yes.
Was there anyone you wouldn't accept?
I wouldn't work for anybody that I couldn't do a good job for, and I wouldn't work for anybody that wasn't prepared to do what is necessary.
You wouldn't object on moral grounds?
I'm not a priest. I have my own personal morality, which is mine. I know the difference between right and wrong.
And what's your job when you're representing them?
We are effectively messengers. What we do is devise strategy. We talk about the methodology of the way things work. We talk about the opportunity that people have to change things if they don't like the way they're going. And we advise them on who they should talk to. We very rarely talk to ministers ourselves. We nearly always encourage the clients to do it.
You saw on that piece of tape one of your colleagues, he actually boasted about having a meeting at 2:30 or conversation 2:30 on a Friday afternoon.
No, if you actually watch the tape, unfortunately you haven't seen the whole tape any more than I have, nor has anybody else who opines on it all the bloody time. It's 3.5 minutes out of an hour and a half's tape. Now, if you think that's a fair representation, then you're deluded. The reality is that what he said was that he was asked if he could get a message to Downing Street by 2:30 in the afternoon because Sir James Dyson was going with the Prime Minister to China and they wanted to bring up the issue of copyright. And what he said was that he was able to deliver that message within an hour.
Well, he boasted that he delivered it.
Oh, look, if you want to use pejorative words like those to Jeremy, it's perfectly fair
for you to do so. The Prime Minister then raised it with the Chinese Prime Minister. And rather
slants the way that you discuss the thing. Boasting and exaggerating are not the same things. Salesmanship in a sales meeting is a perfectly reasonable thing. How come you don't say to me, why did the business investigative journalism pretend that they were a group called Asimov, give us credentials, create a website, create business cards?
Probably it's the only way they could get inside your organisation.
Last week, Nick Mathiasen of the BIJ asked me a series of questions about financial lobbying, which I accurately answered. He didn't like the accuracy of the answer, so he asked me if you could exaggerate it. And I can show you all of that in emails. We can have this discussion till the cows come home. Why don't you talk to me not about that, which is just a complete piece of entrapment and rubbish, and is in the middle of a PCC complaint, has just been upheld by the PRCA, and will be upheld.
PRCA being?
It's the Public Relations Consultants Association.
Oh, for heaven's sake, that's like the bloke in the pub saying you're quite sober when you leave.
It's like the NUJ. You know, I mean, you can dismiss institutions to your heart's content if you want to, and you can belittle anything that you want to. But if you want to have a fair argument, don't discuss what people on there, like Mark Adams, who had nothing to do with this whatsoever. Let me finish the point.
Why don't we have a register of lobbyists so we know who you all are and who you represent?
By all means.
You're happy with that? It will be transparent.
They exist all over the country. We operate in Washington. We sign up to it. We declare all the relationships.
Are we allowed to know all your clients?
You can know all those except, unfortunately, the governments, including the British government and the American government, with whom we have had contracts, over which there is a requirement of confidentiality.
A mandatory register would ensure transparency, wouldn't it?
No, not of what you want. It would tell you who works with what client. It would never be up to date. It would be impossible to manage. It's been tried before. It doesn't work in America. You should know this. The BIJ claimed that what they were doing to us was based on an investigation done in America where they've had a statutory register of lobbyists for 45 years. And that investigation was done 5 years ago. So where on earth is the logic of that?
When David Cameron says, as you heard him say a bit of his speech there, he says, well, a PR man himself, indeed.
Well, ask David Cameron.
We don't know who's meeting whom. We don't know whether any favours are being exchanged. We don't know which outside interests are wielding unhealthy influence.
You must ask him about that, not me.
Well, he should know. He's a former PR man.
Well, that doesn't actually make him a lobbyist, as it happens. That's one of the problems. You haven't the faintest idea what is a lobbyist and what isn't. Nor does the consultation paper.
Was it a sensible thing for him to say?
I personally think he shouldn't have said it, and I'm sure he regrets it. Well, not very much, because he doesn't much care about those things.
It wasn't a sensible thing to say.
I don't think so, no. Because he's given a hook for all the people who want to introduce a statutory register of lobbyists, which is what this is all about. That's what Mark Adams is fighting against, is what the BIJ wants, is what the independent newspaper wants. They are, in fact, Jeremy, lobbying for a statutory register of lobbyists, and they're paid for it.
Aren't people entitled to know who is getting the ear of ministers in a government they elect?
Absolutely.
So you wouldn't have a problem?
There is no, we have no secrecy about our client list. It's published on our website. It's available to everybody. We have never, ever said we won't publish our clients, nor have we ever been untransparent, if there is such a word, about the things that we do. Okay. We get asked questions about lunches that we hold with politicians, dinners we hold with politicians. We openly declare them. The politicians declare them. We tell people what they're about. We tell them what the rules are. We even have sessions, Jeremy, with politicians and journalists present. And we sit there and we let the journalists write about it. Now, so all this rubbish about the lack of transparency is just that. It is rubbish and claptrap put up by people who want to prove that something unpleasant is going on, or as you so charmingly put it, that we smell. Well, actually, I don't smell.
I said, some people say there's a bad smell.
Okay. Yes.
Look, we don't see you very often.
No, you don't.
I begin to see why. I'm beginning to rather regret inviting you, in fact.
Oh,
no, I'm serious. I'm serious for a second. When you look at the state of the Conservative Party now, from your long experience, what do you think? I mean, what advice would you give if you were doing your old job?
I mean, I think the problem was summed up in that discussion you had with George Galloway et al. It is a problem about having a coalition government. Because you've got a coalition government, there is not a majority government in place, so the majority of people are not satisfied. You've got a lot of people who voted Liberal Democrat, they don't like what's going on. A lot of people who voted Conservative don't like what's going on. A lot of people who voted Labour who don't like Labour and didn't like what they did. So you've got a lot of very dissatisfied people, plus you've got a terrible period of austerity in which people are having a very bad time. Everybody, from the top to the bottom, is having a bad time compared to the way they were 5 years ago. The fact that where they were 5 years ago was based on borrowed money, they've all rather forgotten, as we all do. But that doesn't help. And then you've got a situation where it's a very troublesome world. You've got a hell of a lot of strange things going on, the risk of nuclear war in Iran. You've got problems all over the world. You've got protest movements everywhere, which the internet unquestionably causes and creates, because there is a great big gutter of protest in the internet. People can publish all sorts of claptrap on it, and frequently do, about you and me. Your Wikipedia entry is not actually so great either, any more than mine is. But this goes on, and it's a phenomenon, and we have to cope with it. And it makes communications very difficult. As far as the party is concerned,
briefly,
I would very quickly say this: they should have a proper chairman, like they used to have in the good old days, somebody who's active. They should try and separate the positioning of the Conservative Party as a political entity from the government, which is not a Conservative government, it's a coalition government. If they could achieve that separation, and if they could actually bring some people into communication work in the government who know what they're doing, then we might actually end up with a better situation.
Bill Bell, thanks.